Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Hinke. I'm the laboratory manager here at the Coachella Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, and you're watching our Ceqa training, which is part of our annual pesticide handler training series. The district, by being part of California, is required to follow the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as Ceqa. California Environmental Quality Act is designed to protect California's natural resources. We have beautiful lands and a number of animal and plant species that we want to protect and make sure that they're here for a long period after we finish doing the work that we need to do. The California Environmental Quality Act includes as a part of the Public Resources Code that any public agency has to adopt a program for monitoring or reporting on the revisions that it makes on any project that it has and the measures that are imposed to mitigate or avoid significant environmental effects. The district does a lot of work on a yearly basis as part of our integrated vector management program. There are the surveillance traps that are set out for adult mosquitoes. There's the inspections that people are doing to see if there's standing water or there's fire ants. There's the control applications, all of the pesticide applications that we make. There's just even the driving around that we do in order to be able to get to do the outreach and the public communication that we do. And when you look at all of these factors together on an annual basis, the district, in reviewing that, saw that there is the potential that we could have a negative impact on the environment. All of those things add up. But also looking at the totality of the work that we do, we also saw that there are things that we do to protect the environment. And by doing these things, we can lessen or mitigate our potential for having this negative impact. And that is why the district has what's called a mitigated negative declaration, that by following our annual monitoring and reporting program, we believe that the applications and the work that we do does not have a negative impact on the environment. By that, there's a lot of things that are going on. So let's take a look at what's going on with our integrated vector management program. Over an annual year in 2021, we did a lot of work. There were more than 27,850 applications of larval control products to control mosquitoes done by the technicians that year. And this is not including all of those ULV adulticide applications or those applications that were made to large areas to control Aedes mosquitoes through the WALS application systems. That is just the larval mosquito control applications and the Aedes applications that are done to individual residences. The surveillance team collected more than 465,000 mosquitoes. Now, if you think about a mosquito, we know that they bite us, but we also know that they could be food for other animals. And so by collecting them and taking them out of the environment, they're no longer a resource for other animals to eat. We also, as a district, made more than 2,600 treatments for fire ants. That's a lot of ground that's covered and a lot of applications that are made to control an ant that we know we need to, but again, could be food or could be a resource for something else to use. So if you look at all of this work that we're doing, what we also know is that we can do things to lessen any potential negative impact that we might be having. If you look at the Ceqa 2021 report, there are 18 different areas that we do additional monitoring of the work that we're doing in order to lessen our impact. Now, 18 is a lot, but really these group out into 5 different categories under 3 different sections. So we do a lot of work when it comes to reducing our impact by having our regular trainings. And this shows that we're compliant with laws and regulations that we have to be, but it also are things that we're doing in order to make sure that we're using the control efforts and the situations that we need to and not have negative impacts by over applying or under treating an area. We also, on an annual basis, review all of the work that we're doing in conservation areas. There's a number of those throughout the district. We're looking at the treatments and the work that we do in that area to ensure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and that we're using all of the options that are available to us as part of our disposal. In particular, in these conservation areas, we're also double checking what the work is with our ATVs. Are we using these off-road vehicles appropriately in ways that are going to lessen potential damage to wildlife? And finally, We want to make sure that we're showing that we use the best practices that are available to us to control mosquitoes and fire ants and other vectors. We do this by working closely with researchers who are often developing solutions for us that are going to work the best in our environments. And we also do this by applying mosquito fish only to private property. And I'll go into some more detail about what that means later in the presentation. So, you've been attending the annual pesticide handler series. There's a number of videos that are part of this, and this is a lot of work that anybody who's getting ready to make an application of pesticides here in Riverside County needs to do in order to make sure that they're doing their best job. You've seen things on the N series and the labels and the safety data sheets. You've attended training on district recommended rates and why that can sometimes be different than what's allowed on the label. You've paid attention to spill prevention and how to safely handle pesticides. And you've also examined how to use your respirator. Make sure that you're protecting yourself from any pesticides that could harm you. You also attend information on preventing heat stress so that you are able to work safely in this hot environment that we have in the Coachella Valley. All of these trainings and your attendance at these trainings is part of the Ceqa monitoring program. And also part of this monitoring are the files on the attendance that we all do for our continuing education units for maintaining our pesticide applications licenses. That's not all that's part of this report. Additional compliance comes in the form of all of the reports that many people across the district work on in order to make sure that we're doing our work. We make reports monthly on the pesticide use to the Riverside County Agricultural Commissioner. We keep maps of known mosquito and vector sources. And so these are trap locations where we're using and collecting mosquitoes, also where we've found fire ants and those inspections that you've made out there. Separately, we're also keeping a map of where we make treatments to these sources. So the difference between where a mosquito might be and what we actually treat is a distinction that we make as part of this report. We know that we don't treat for every mosquito. We're mostly treating for the vector mosquitoes that impact people. Also part of this compliance is having the record of what our standard operating procedures are for the district threshold to treat. So as you're making your dip samples out in the rural valley, you know that you're looking for the number of mosquitoes that you get per dip. And we show what that is so that people understand what makes it appropriate for you to make that kind of a treatment and what is low enough that we're not making a treatment. Additionally, as part of the Ceqa report are the reports on safety. So anything that we've done in order to improve safety here at the district, but also any incidences that happened over the previous year. There's a report on the quality control, all the work that that team does in order to make sure that the pesticides are working the way that we want them to. And a report on environmental compliance, which includes all the reports that go to other government agencies that are checking to make sure that we do our jobs appropriately. We also include, as part of our Ceqa report, inspections that are made by the California Department of Public Health. We get inspected every couple of years to ensure that we're abiding by our cooperative agreement that allows us to make our mosquito and vector control inspections. And you can see here on the slide a portion of the inspection that was made in 2019. We also include any inspections that are made by the Riverside Agricultural Commissioner, whether those are inspections of somebody stopping a technician in the field to talk about the work that they're doing, or inspections that come at the district to see the headquarters and see where pesticides are held and all of the things that we do. I mentioned that we carefully review all the applications that are made in conservation areas. There are 18 different conservation areas across the district, and these are areas where people are working to protect the habitats that are there and also the plants and animals that you can find on them. In 2021, 227 applications were made to 44 sites for controlling mosquitoes, for larval mosquitoes. And there were 20 ULV or adulticide applications that were made in those areas and 3 barrier applications. There is additionally 1 conservation area that has a private residence as part of it. And so in 2021, a fire ant application was made to that residence, and also an Aedes mosquito application was made to a separate residence that's neighboring that. These applications we're taking an extra look at just to make sure that they are compliant with all the laws and regulations that go on in that. You can see on this map, a zoomed in area of the shoreline, you can see in orange one of those conservation areas, and you can see bordering it sites where treatments were made that were part of this. Our ATV and our UTV use is another area that we really focus on, and that's because the use of these off-road vehicles have the potential to really impact our wildlife habitats. So when we're looking at what's going on with these, every time a technician takes one of those vehicles out, there's a key log to let us know where that technician is going, what kind of habitat that they're using at. And in particular, we're required to take an extra look at the kinds of applications that are made during the bird breeding season between March and June. And we're very interested in the applications that are being made along the shoreline because we are part of the Pacific Flyway, where a number of endangered and sensitive species are using the Salton Sea and the surrounding habitat as an area to rest as they make their flights up and down the Pacific Flyway. So we take a look at where those applications are, and we're reporting those as the number of applications that we make on an annual basis. Technicians that are using those equipment in the field do have to undergo annual training, and we review that training and what is taught at that. And both of these are part of records that are part of the Ceqa report. In addition, we talk about our endangered and sensitive and listed species on a routine basis. You'll see 3 of those that are listed here, and you see that there are many more as part of your Canter's Manual. The top one is the diurnal burrowing owl, and is definitely one of my favorites. The gray bird over to the right is the gray vireo, and the red bird on the bottom is the summer tanager. There are a number of other species and animals that you should be aware of, along with a few plants that are in the area. The Salton Sea is a very special habitat, but we have these birds and plants throughout the valley. One of the other sensitive species is the desert pupfish, and the desert pupfish is endangered. We find it in seeps and canals that are leading into the Salton Sea. This little fish is just super cute and super amazing. They are an egg-laying fish, and they're normally about 3 inches long. They're normally tan to kind of a greenish olive color, and they've got these vertical bars that are on them, these 5 to 8. But the male fish will turn bright blue during the breeding season, and so they're just super cute. We also actually really like desert pupfish and would love for them to not be endangered because they actually would really help us do our job. In places where we find pupfish, we don't find mosquitoes, and that's because pupfish do eat mosquitoes. Unfortunately, mosquito fish will eat desert pupfish eggs, and so we should not be adding mosquito fish if you know that it is desert pupfish habitat. We have a few of these in the Coachella Valley. We have ponds at the Living Desert where they are rearing the pupfish, and a pond at the UCR Palm Desert campus. Additionally, I mentioned that they're in the seeps and canals that lead to the Salton Sea. There's some ponds at the Thousand Palms Preserve and a small pond behind the Salton Sea State Park headquarters. Additionally, there are pupfish at the waters at the Dos Palmas Preserve. We do want to protect the desert pupfish. It's important, but we also want to make sure that we're controlling for mosquitoes. So if you know that there are mosquitoes in there, that's a place to report to us, and we can talk about how to best do what we need to do in a particular area. The other way that we're able to prevent having problems is by adding only mosquito fish to private properties. By this, I mean a property that's owned by a person or a business. So an abandoned swimming pool behind somebody's house where the bank owns that house at the time, that's private property, and we can add our mosquito fish to it. A canal that's leading straight into the Salton Sea, probably not private property, and so therefore we should not be adding mosquito fish there. We are actually under some additional regulations which come up as part of our Ceqa report. This is California Code Title 14, Section 238.5F, and Riverside County is listed out as one of the places where mosquito fish need to be put onto private property, not public property. So that's something to watch for if you're talking to folks from another district. They may be able to have mosquito fish in more places than we can, we need to keep them on private property. So we do all this work over the course of the year. It's reviewed by a number of people. What happens then? Well, it's summarized into a report, and you have a copy of the 2021 report for your review. This report is presented at the board meeting where they review it, and it's filed for anyone that wants a request. Now, what you have is the summary. It's the highlights of those 18 different areas that we're inspecting on a regular basis. But all of the maps and the standard operating procedures and the records of the work that's done, that is also part of this report. And so people can ask for any of that information that they'd like. It would take quite a bit of paper, and so I hope that people don't necessarily want to do that, but it is available for anybody that would like to read that. I hope that I've impressed upon you as part of this training that the work that you do at the district is part of this compliance for Ceqa. It is very important, and it is really useful and important to all of us that you do your best. It makes the reporting for this much easier, and it makes it possible for us to be in compliance with what we need to be doing. So some of the things that you are doing on a routine basis is reporting your information into the mobile accurately, checking and being sure that you're putting things in appropriately in a timely manner. It helps to make sure that we're transparent with what we're doing, and it helps to make sure that we're having any negative results fixed. If you do make a mistake, reporting those problems and overtreatments to your supervisor so that they can be corrected promptly is important. It makes it so that we're able to comply with what we have to for the California Department of Public Health and what we have to for the Riverside County Ag Commissioner. Each of us is responsible for our own gold card, and that means that attending our trainings and making sure that our records are up to date is an important process for this. You have the responsibility and the privilege of having a vector control license. And so if you know that you've been out on a day that we're having one of these trainings, it's important that you take the responsibility. Remind your supervisor that you need to make up that training and ensure that you understand everything that's in the trainings. You're responsible for everything that we talk about so that you can do your best job out in the field. Finally, you can make applications when you're around listed species, whether it's animals or plants, and you can set traps around them. But you do need to be watchful for them, and you should conduct your work around them carefully. If it's breeding season and you're down using one of the ATVs along the shoreline, you'll want to be extra careful. Maybe that's a time to go slower than you did on a different period of the year. If you have any questions as you're experiencing species out in the field, your supervisor is always happy to help, as am I. I'd be happy to talk to you about anything that you can do. Thank you so much for paying attention to today's training. Happy to talk with you about any questions you have about the California Environmental Quality Act and what the district does for its compliance.